Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining us again for another video here on RunThrough TV and another guest video today. We have got Rob Hitchmough. Now, you may have seen Rob around our events right across the country, or you might know him from his amazing podcast, What the Fartlek. Rob and other founding members began the podcast in lockdown, and it has progressed from strength to strength. They now have built an incredible community and come to events right across the country, leading meetups and social gatherings as well, including a recent PACING meetup at the Jubilee Bridge 10K not too long ago, where the podcast took over pacing duties for the day and again did a fantastic job. We get into it in this conversation along with much more, so I do hope you enjoy it here on RunThrough TV.
My name is Rob. I am a runner. I'm a dad, probably first and foremost a dad, a husband, and I'm a host of a silly little podcast called What the Fartlek that's been going for about 3 years now, talking all things running. And chatting to some awesome people from in and around our running community, but perhaps even more excitingly, building a little corner of a community that we like to call the Fartlek family, which is about 150 strong now, from people around the UK and a little bit further beyond, who are all part of this crazy journey that we're on. We put on virtual events, we do annual meetups all across the country, and yeah, it's a bit of a wild ride at the moment, but all good fun.
I feel like the best place to start is why. Why did this start? Where did it come from?
Lockdown, to be honest. Not the irony is we've got a really good team. I don't want to put a number on it because I'll get it wrong. I think there's 9 of us. He says with every bit of confidence that he can muster up. But yeah, I think there's 9 of us, and none of us knew each other before lockdown. We didn't know each other from the quote-unquote real world, and we were all part of the online running community on Instagram. And when lockdown happened, we just got chatting and we got close, and we did online quizzes, and like everyone did, the standard lockdown kind of quiz nights, and we are this mutual love of running. And it turns out that Matt, who's my co-host on the podcast, lives 6 miles away. So when the world opened up again, we started going for some runs together. And I've always wanted to do a podcast. I've always wanted to do something a little bit creative, and I like the sound of my own voice, as you're probably going to learn over the coming half an hour or so, or however long we're chatting for. So, and he just encouraged me to do it. And what was great was we had a good gang of people around us then who wanted to be part of it, but wanted to just help build it. So, it wasn't a case of everyone saying, oh, I want to be on this podcast. It's people saying, well, what if I do the social media for you? Or what if I edit it for you? Or what if I book the guests? And from nowhere, we had this wonderful little team that just kind of came together, and it just built from there. I think the early going was definitely just to scratch a creative itch. And then the community side of things really came in a couple of months in, and that's when we kind of thought, oh, hang on, actually, this is kind of where we want to pivot to. This is what we want this to be.
And what I love about runners so much is, I was having a conversation with somebody else about this, that runners will always do anything to help each other out when it comes to running. But it seems that with your story there, that runners are doing lots of things to help you out in the podcast endeavor as well. So creating that family and creating that community, it must feel pretty special watching it continue to grow.
It's amazing, and I'm not 100% sure if it wasn't for the community that we'd still be going. Like, don't get me wrong, I love chatting rubbish with my pals for an hour a week, but there's a lot of work involved. I've got a real job. I've got to run. I've got kids. There's a lot that goes on, and I don't know if it hadn't been for the community side of things that we would have stuck it out for October 2020 we started, so we're not far off 3 years now. We've been going for about 120 episodes deep. But you said just then about how runners will do anything for you, and yes, the 9 of us, the core team, that do help each other out. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, we do help each other out, but it's more than that. It's people who listen to the podcast and then get involved in the community, and then they're like, oh, I'll do a newsletter for you every week. And then it's people who doing a parkrun morning. You've been doing these in Sheffield. Maybe I'll start doing those down south, and there's a good little contingent around the London area, so I'll organise those for you. And everybody's got a little niche and a little thing that they do, and it's much bigger than just the core group of us. And it's really humbling that people have bought into something that we care so much about.
Something that I thought was very special, and you can check out all the photos I know on the What the Fartlek Instagram, and also the RunThrough Instagram as well, was when you did come and pace the Jubilee Bridge 10K. And to kind of witness that firsthand and in person. How many of you were there? 9, was it? Or 8 or 9?
Pacing, yeah. So I'm from Widnes originally. We live in Sheffield now. My family still lives there. My wife's family still lives there. And it's probably our second hub, I'd say. Yeah. If South Yorkshire is the HQ for What the Fartlek, Widnes is probably the first outpost that we established. There's a good little gang of, they call themselves Team Widnes, and there's a good little group of them out there. So it seemed almost fitting to go out and do Jubilee. We've got a great relationship with RunThrough. When you have your much deserved odd weekends off from MCing, I occasionally attempt to fill your very big shoes. Sammy works on the comms team, my wife, so Matt's been a guest on the podcast, so we've got a really good relationship with RunThrough. And yeah, when we found out they were looking for pacers, it just felt like a good thing to have a go at. We've had people kind of saying, the group chat that we've got, I quite fancy doing this, so put your money where your mouth is and give it a go, and RunThrough are kind enough to facilitate that. And you guys were brilliant in terms of maybe adapting and being flexible in terms of what you'd normally expect for us. You let us, we wore our What the Fartlek t-shirts, you were giving us loads of shout outs. It was just a great atmosphere to be a part of, and one that we really enjoyed, and one that we signed up to do some more in October on the back of it. So yeah.
And look, from my side as well, from somebody that does these kind of weekly and gets to see so many people achieving their goals and crossing their lines. I love nothing more than seeing people help other people achieve those goals. And it kind of goes back to what we said right at the start, right, which was runners love helping other runners, and that's what that was that day, seeing those pace groups and everybody literally pace it to perfection as well, which is absolutely amazing. Just crossing the line and helping other runners achieve their goals. That for you guys as well, afterwards, having that big group photo under the bridge reflecting on it, must have felt pretty cool.
It was. I think pacing's special, and I've done bits and bobs of it at park runs and informally with friends. It's the first time I'd done it at a race, and I think that was the same for all of us. We've got Ben, who's one of my co-hosts, does our park run segments with his fiancée Emma, who is a very experienced pacer, does a lot of pacing for Run for All. But he wasn't there. They were off doing some gallivanting around Scandinavia for park run that weekend. So he'd kind of given us some ideas and some hints and tips and things to do, and what to do with your watches at mapping to the kilometer markers, and how much is too much, maybe encouragement compared to what's positive things to say to people. And so he was really, really helpful with that, but we all went into it a little bit naive and didn't quite know what to expect. So considering, like you said, I think everyone was within about 35 seconds of the time. We got some great feedback from people who sought us out afterwards, which I guess is easy when you've got your name tattooed across your t-shirt, to say thank you. But I think what I would say, and I'd probably take my What the Fartlek hat off and put a RunThrough hat on for just a second, is that RunThrough do this throughout the country now and at all events. And I would encourage anybody to get involved and do it. Okay, you may not be able to be in a position to do it with a group where you take it over in its entirety, but I emceed at Tatton in the June, and I think they just had some people showing up and doing it, and the sense of community was still incredible. These people kind of like getting to know each other and being like, right, well, I'm doing this and you're doing 50, and coming up with ideas at the start, and then seeing them all coming over the finish line. There's an endorphin rush that comes from pacing and helping people achieve the goals that you will not, I guarantee you will not get. Any PB of your own will not give you that same sense of satisfaction.
And it's an unbelievable feeling. I was talking to Freya Morgan, who is running just for an incredible cause at the moment. You can actually check out the interview on the channel with Freya. and she was talking about helping somebody across the line in a race and it being a better feeling almost than achieving a PB herself. And it is that, isn't it? It's that feeling that you've helped somebody achieve a goal, but also you understand what it is like to achieve that goal. So it kind of, you get it through them, which almost feels even better, as you said. And it's that thing again of runners doing anything to help other runners. Mate, talking about your running journey a little bit then, because if runners do anything to help other runners are also a little bit naive, as you said before with the pacing situation. Do you see these traits and see these patterns and see these things that each runner has through your running journey, and how do you kind of go about sharing your experience with other people then?
Well, funnily enough, my experience is normally just don't do what I do because I'm awful at it.
Yeah,
I am the most reluctant runner in the world, he says, chatting on a channel for a running events company about a running podcast that he hosts. But I think the thing for me is that running, we can get really bogged down in running. We can get really bogged down in the times that we want to run, in training plans, in the next goal, the next marathon. And it's not that these things aren't important, and it's not that we can't get a great sense of achievement and self-satisfaction, never mind the mental and physical health benefits of pushing towards a goal. But there is a real joy that comes from just going out for a run, and particularly going out for a run with a pal. And that's what the podcast has really given me. We've done challenges. We're just about to launch another challenge, our Summer Showdown event through July and August, which is the third iteration of its kind. It's like a virtual most miles wins kind of team-based challenge. And one of the most successful things that we've done as part of the challenge is we do Run with a Pal week, and whether that's in person or it's just picking up the phone and going for a walk and speaking to somebody at the other end of the country that you've never spoken to before, we try and encourage people to come out of the comfort zones and do that. And I think there's a dimension to social running that maybe people don't see until they really immerse themselves into it. And it's not to take away from all the great things that can happen when you're on your own and you're pushing yourself, just you and the road, and you're just trying to get that PB. But what I've certainly seen, what I've experienced, will encourage everyone to do is just get out and run for the love of running, because we can lose that a little bit sometimes, and it can become a chore. Oh, I've got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get out and do this. If you can take a step back, maybe when you're outside of a training block, when you're outside of a big goal, and just go out because you just fancy a poodle, it's a completely different type of enjoyment. And I think it's wonderful for the head as well as the body.
What is that giving you then, running with a pal?
I think for me, it's just the headspace side of things that you take from going out and running on a run is great. But I can't take credit for this, because it was an interview we did with a wonderful lady who's part of our community. She was our last guest in Series 10, Hayley Morgan. And she was talking about how she loves to run with her son, because it's a great space for them to talk openly and honestly. And she said something that really stuck with me, which was, there's something really different between talking to somebody side by side compared to when you're face to face. When you're face to face, it can be quite aggressive, it can be quite intense, it can be quite overwhelming. When you're not looking at each other and you're running alongside each other, you can speak a lot more freely. And I have found that I have conversations on a run that I probably wouldn't be comfortable having necessarily face to face with somebody. You can get so much more off your chest. You can be so much more honest and real with somebody. And I just think it's a great form of therapy. It's a great way to just to put the world to right, and to get off your chest whatever might be swimming around in your brain at that time. And yeah, what Hayley said really stuck with me, because I'd never until we chatted 2-3 weeks ago, I'd put two and two get together, that there is something in that dynamic of, not having to look at somebody in the eyes, not having somebody in your personal space, that I think allows you to share a little bit differently than you would do otherwise.
It feels a bit like a truth serum, I think, from time to time. And Is that because you're a bit more at kind of your rawest form, I guess, when you're running? You haven't got that protective barrier. And also, I think it's because the person that is running with you, if you are running with someone, you know is going through exactly the same thing at that moment. So sharing whatever that may be, difficulty at home, difficulty at work, or just, you know, just having a general chat about what's on the telly that night or what music you're liking, it feels so much easier than, as you said, if you were just sitting down, having a pint, staring straight in each other's eyes. It's like, well, that's just a bit, it just feels a bit too much, doesn't it, I think?
Yeah, there's a great kinship that comes from it, and not to say that I don't enjoy sitting down and having a pint with someone as well, because I do a little bit too much, which is why I have to run so much to offset the calories. But no, you're absolutely right. I think it's a great equalizer, and the other thing that I think can be quite overwhelming, particularly if you're more of a back of the pack runner, or you are new to running, or you see some of these times that people can achieve and you think, wow, that is so out of my wheelhouse, be quite intimidating. And so even talking about running to somebody who can, say, run a 2-hour 45 marathon, to me, who can just about scrape under 4 hours, it can feel a little bit alien. Like, your experience is completely different to mine. But when you're both out there running, whether you're running a 7-minute mile or a 12-minute mile, if you're running together, you're in it together. And again, I think it can be a real equalizer from a running perspective as well, from a conversation perspective, because you realise that, yes, we might have different goals, ambitions, we might have different foundations, different capabilities, but we're all just in it because we like to run.
In terms of what the Fartlek and where it started to where we are now, did you ever envisage all of this happening? Was there a plan of this happening, or was it kind of just like, all right, I'm quite enjoying this week by week, so let's just keep ticking the boxes and see where it ends up?
Yeah, absolutely that, mate. I mean, you look at us now and you think, have they got a plan? But I promise we have. Early on, no. It would be a real stretch for me to sit here and be like, we always wanted a community focus. We always wanted to be running meetups throughout the year. We always wanted to have a park run segment in there and an interview segment. And what the podcast is now, no. It was just, to be honest, it was, I think everyone in the core team, the core group of us, we were a bit lonely because of lockdown. We were spinning our wheels a bit because of lockdown, and we just needed something to focus on. And it was as simple as that. It was, we just wanted a project.
Yeah.
What very quickly happened, and it did happen quickly, probably by our second series, which was only 3 months in, was that we saw that not only did other people feel the same, and that they were getting something out of us putting that podcast out that was similar to what we were getting out of creating it. And that was wonderful. But there was also probably an opportunity to build on that foundation, but also a responsibility.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you put yourself out there in the public eye, and you put something out there to an audience, you've got to follow through with it. And it did evolve, and the community has surpassed the podcast in my opinion. Since the community absolutely comes first, the podcast now is merely a vehicle through which we engage, we interact, and we communicate with that community of people, and we try to build that community of people. It absolutely wasn't that at the start, but it almost became inevitable that that's what it had to be. I didn't want it to be, oh, you're a fan of my podcast. I mean, we're not big enough for that anyway, you know what I mean? It'd be awfully peculiar of me to be walking around like some kind of celebrity, based on the 500, 600 people a week that listen to the podcast. But what we did consciously want to do is make sure that there wasn't a defined line between us and the people who are enjoying what we're putting out. We wanted everybody to be a part of it. And so that kind of gave that natural evolution to, okay, so we want to build a community. What's it going to be? And then it was like, okay, Fartlek family. And then it was like, okay, so how are we going to engage these people? We're still in the middle of a lockdown, so how are we going to do it? And then the virtual challenges started. And then all of a sudden, then it became, oh God, we can meet each other again now. This is scary. Like virtual stuff's got its own intricacies and difficulties and complexities to work with, but pretty straightforward, because you don't have to put yourself on that precipice of shame of I want people to come to an event that I'm organising. So then it was like, okay, so what do we do next, and how do we make it work? And we've just been dead lucky that we've got such an engaged group of people around us that care so much and want to be a part of it and spend their own money on. We don't make any money out of the podcast, but we do have these events where, like Alton Towers, every year the RunThrough event we go to. That's kind of our autumn event, and there's people that travel up from London to the Midlands, travel down from Scotland. It's not cheap to put yourself in a hotel for 2 nights and pay for those race tickets and pay for the petrol, the train fare down. People, we're doing our summer weekender in Sheffield at the end of August, where we put on a charity football game, and then we have a night out afterwards, and we've got 60 people signed up to it, and they're coming from, we've got somebody coming from America for it. It's madness. People are invested in it, and so there's a responsibility that comes with that, and you've got to roll with the punches, and it takes a lot of time, and it's evolving into something that probably takes as much time as my day job, but I love it, so we just keep on rolling with it.
What's really nice, actually, and you've kind of mentioned this theme a couple of times already in this conversation, where you kind of said, oh, just go out for a run. You don't always have to do, the time. You don't always have to get to that point to break that barrier or achieve that distance. Just go out for a run. And what I feel like you guys have done with the podcast is you've just gone out for a run and you've just tacked those runs on back to back to back to back. And as if you're running, where you look back and you think, I'm actually pretty fit now because I've just gone for a run for 6 months here. Yeah. You've just gone for a run in this podcast setting for X amount of time, and you're now stepping back and you're seeing, oh wow, this community is there and it's strong and it's building and it's growing. And that is something that I think can only be done organically. Yeah. Almost if you had gone in with this big elaborate, I'm going to take over the world plan, I don't think you'd be at this point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's fair. And it's not to say that different approaches and strategies are better or worse than ours, but I think we're quite pleased with how we've got to where we are. And I agree with you. I'm not saying that if we'd have approached it differently, or if we'd have gone bigger, or if we'd have paid for advertising, or if we'd have tried to sign people up to events that we gained a profit for, or anything like that. I don't know. I'm not saying it's wrong, and I'm not judging anybody for their approach to how they want to be a part of this community. But I don't think it will be what the Fartlek. I don't think it'll be the Fartlek family if we've done it any differently to the way we do it. And I'm very proud that we've got to where we are through just word of mouth, through people telling the pal. I'm in this WhatsApp group, and you know what? It's absolutely bonkers. Like, I go away and I come back to 5,000 messages, but they're good fun. Do you want to join? And then, have you ever been to have you ever want to go to Alton Towers and you don't have to queue for the rides? We're all going to put on turquoise t-shirts and go for a drink afterwards, and it's just nice. And I do tend to find that I have these like moments. I don't really stop, is what I do find. Like, I've been told off for it. I think we were in Manchester. We were at Brewdog after Manchester Marathon in April, and we took about 40 people there. We had a big cheer squad, and people ran it as well. And we were in Brewdog afterwards drinking, and I got told off by my wife because I was sat at the end table starting to make notes for London the week after. So I don't have very many moments where I like just stop and smell the roses, because I'm always thinking about the next thing. But there are the odd occasions where I'll kind of, like you just said, I'll step back and I'll look at people. And the thing that gives me the most joy, that gives that serotonin release that just makes me think, oh God, this is good. I just love seeing people who haven't spoke to each other before interacting. I love seeing two people who've come to an event, maybe didn't know anybody, maybe a bit apprehensive, a bit nervous, and then all of a sudden they're having a beer together, or they're talking about they live close to each other, so they're going to go on a run next week, or they're going to meet at a park run, and then you see that on social media afterwards, and it follows up on that. And they're the moments that make me go, oh, okay, yeah, there we go. That's what I'm in it for. That's what gives me that little dopamine hit.